Basketball is very good. Basketball is very good. Basketball is very good. Basketball is very good.
Welcome to a completely unbiased NBA Ringer NBA show. It's group chat. I'm a little disappointed. I'm not dispassionate about this.
It's more of a funeral than any sort of celebration post-game.
My name is Chris Ryan. My psychologist is Justin Verrier. Haley O'Shaughnessy is here. Kevin O'Connor is here. The blog boys, the Bitcoin boys are in the back. Say hi, everybody. It's Paolo. It's Keith. It's Pat. Danny's here.
Tacos.
The Sixers are about to lose to the Boston Celtics.
8 seconds left.
Yeah, in Game 2 of the Eastern Conference semifinals.
No faith.
There's 8 seconds left, so Reggie Miller is not coming out of the tunnel anytime soon.
We're
going to get into everything Sixers Celtics. We're going to get into everything Cavs Raptors. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other series still going on. But let's talk about what everybody's going to be talking about starting basically right now is where the hell did Ben Simmons go? Kevin.
For Boston's defense.
So you think it's a matter of getting swallowed up?
Yeah, I think it's a number of factors. It's like we've talked about this the whole season. I've written about it before. We're like, he can't shoot right now, so there's a limitation in the half court. But Boston's ability to throw different guys at him on the floor, whether it was Al Horford or whether it was Marcus Smart, they really just limited Ben Simmons from getting into the paint, which is the only place he can score right now.
Right, and it's like if he's not getting into the paint and then distributing, it's 4-on-5 on offense.
Because he won't shoot.
Yeah.
He's not willing to shoot. He's not willing to take a shot he won't miss.
Took 4 in the entire game. He missed all of them. So what are you doing on the court if you can't
he only
distribute
took
that way?
2 before he got yanked, and then he came back with 5 minutes
Let's be
left.
really real. They went up with TJ on the floor. The Sixers went up in this game with TJ McConnell leading this team. And when Embiid and Simmons came back in the fourth quarter, now it's 103-106, so I have to pay attention to this.
To pull the curtain back just a little bit,
Okay,
Chris was definitely caping for TJ to replace Ben Simmons, future Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
We're not so far along. Okay, so there's 2 sides of this. Mm-hmm. You leave Ben Simmons in to learn from mistakes and show him that it's his team, and you gotta come through adversity and build your character by losing or winning in these big hot situations.
And
on
taking
the road.
shots.
And maybe take a shot from time
In
to
a
time.
basketball game, yeah.
And then the other side of it is he's just a kid. He's still a quote-unquote rookie. And sometimes everybody needs to sit. And TJ showed them, TJ got them back in this game.
It was a great call by Brett Brown to do that. It took a lot of guts, and it's one of the reasons why he's a great coach. They were down 6 when they pulled Ben Simmons and put TJ McConnell in late in the third quarter. Then they were up 2 when Ben Simmons eventually went back in. McConnell's energy really changed that game and brought Philly back into it. But you need Ben Simmons when this game goes back to Game 3 to elevate his play in the half court. You need to post him up, I think. You got to find a way to get him going.
I think the thing that's making me so upset is that it's not like Miami didn't try to throw some stuff at him last series. It's like they were really physical with him. Like MMA fighters were squaring off with him.
Boston's just better though. They have more guys that they can throw at Ben Simmons, and not only that, they have more guys that they can put on everybody else on the floor as well, especially Joel Embiid with Aaron Baines or Al Horford.
And maybe they have a better rookie. Have we ever considered that? Come on, I mean, Jason Tatum played like the Rookie of the Year, and it's funny because we completely overlooked him in the discussion.
Quick note, nothing's funny about this.
No, but we overlooked Tatum in this entire discussion. It was Mitchell or Simmons. Obviously, Tatum kind of tailed off toward the end of that season. His three-point shooting, which was in the high 40s at a certain point early in the season.
Tapered off.
Significantly tapered off as we look, and he's about to go to the line right now. I just think he makes so much sense for this team, and it's great to see him stepping up.
He's filling this Jaylen Brown void. Jaylen Brown did play tonight, but pretty much he would do something cool and then look like he just tore his hamstring.
Right, and then have that wince face. But then he would always still go up and shoulder bump his teammates, and we were like, don't leave the ground.
Right. There was a couple of plays, Haley, where we saw Ben Simmons also getting absolutely smoked by Terry Rozier or Marcus Smart.
Happens to the best of them.
So if he's going to be a negative on defense and he's going to be a negative on offense, I'm not panicking. Look, even if they lose this series, so be it, whatever. But, I
wouldn't panic.
The series starts when it goes to Philly.
Yeah.
So wait,
right.
Can we just recap here? They can't play one of their number 1 overall picks, and they can't play the more recent one.
I didn't say they can't play Simmons. I'm just saying
but down the stretch
tonight he threw a donut, and it's he's just got to get his mind right, whatever's going on. These are the rest thing I don't want to hear about, because he had his rookie wall. He got over it. He looked incredible against Miami.
Is it really getting his mind right, though, or is it getting his game right? He doesn't use his left hand to finish around the rim. And he can't shoot. He shoots with the wrong hands.
Well, you can't get your game right in between game 1 and 2. You know
for
what
sure.
I mean?
That's what I mean. It's more about the off season and the next couple of years that he needs to improve on these significant weaknesses.
Right, which I guess is what you can take as a happy takeaway from this loss.
I have no happy takeaways. Paolo.
I love it. This is I'm sorry to interrupt, but as the game goes final, to kind of add to you guys' point here, it's the final line for Simmons is he's a minus 23. Woo! And TJ is a plus 17, so just,
can we stop real quick here? Can I just check out? I love math. Can we just check on your emotional state here? How you doing? You doing okay,
I'm
buddy?
still in a real post Super Bowl zone where nothing can hurt me. But I love this team more than some of my family members, and this was a really disappointing performance. And we got Covington back into where he needed to be, where he looked like an incredible two-way player tonight. And I was hoping, there's no way that Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier can play out of their minds like they did the first game. And Smart's shooting numbers were bad. But
not this game.
Yeah.
No, this game at one point,
He's
Marcus
4 for 4
Smart.
at one
Yeah,
point,
he was 4 for 4.
Yeah.
I think he finished 4 from 7. 4 from
4 for 10. So
10,
he's 0 for 6 on his last threes.
Yeah, that's pretty typical Smart.
Defensively, Kevin just kept gushing over him the entire game.
There was that play in, I believe, the third quarter where Sixers had, I think, 4 on 2 in transition, and Marcus Smart just stepped up and stripped the ball from Ben Simmons in transition in a play where Sixers probably have an incredible points per possession.
That honestly speaks to a lot of what happened in the game, which was that the Celtics looked more explosive, but even the Celtics that weren't supposed to look explosive did. Al Horford blowing past Joel Embiid at the end was really weird and just not encouraging at all. For the Sixers?
I mean, this is what we talked about just a few weeks ago. We were talking about kryptonites, right? And I think what we brought up was a team that was good enough and experienced enough to go at some of the younger Sixers players. And now you're starting to see it a bit where they've designed a defense and can execute it. And Ben Simmons is a little shook. Long term, he could be a top 20 player in the league, top 5 player in the league. But right now, he still needs to figure out how to get over this first hurdle. It seems like they're a little put back based on their first sign of adversity for a young up and coming team.
Well, what you were saying earlier is that he can't shoot through it. And that's the difference.
No,
because he literally will not shoot.
And that's, I think, very uncommon for what we see in all basketball right now, right? We're such a shooters league that we're so used to seeing guys. If they're slumping, okay, just keep chucking. Keep chucking. It'll go in. You'll be fine. But Ben, it's literally like a tomahawk jam or nothing for him. And if he's not getting runways to the lane, if they're not designing plays where he's getting 3 or 4 feet of clear space to get to the hoop, obviously it just tightened up tonight. I take your point about running into a team that was a little bit more experienced, but it's not like these guys are the 04 Spurs or something like that, and Robert Horry is out there. This is
they have the backbone, as we've always said. They have the system in place, and they have guys that fit the certain roles that maybe they're not to the level of Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, but they do fit what they want to do, especially defensively. This is the best defense in the league this season?
Best defense in the league, and everybody in the team can defend except for Shane Larkin. Everybody is a really good defender.
Shane Larkin.
And Shane Larkin at least hustles and is good position, like TJ.
I don't want to make your night worse.
Yeah.
But I do have a stat.
No,
for
make
you.
it worse.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, right? I do have a stat for you that apparently the Celtics in series where they've gone up 2-0 are 36-0.
All right.
Wow.
I mean, the Celtics blew a 2-0 lead. Is that what we're doing now? That seems like I get that, but like, this is about compressed narratives. You're supposed to hold serve at home, right? Tell that to the Raptors.
We're already there.
Well, if the Sixers win the next 2 games, what are we talking about? If they win their next 2 games at home, is this an even series? Is this going to come down to 7? I think the series still goes 6 or 7 games.
I would love to see the stats of a team that goes up 2-0 in a series. I think that they're probably overwhelming in favor of the team that went up.
Yes.
These are very abnormal teams to do that too, though. On one hand, you have a very young team. On the other hand, you have a team that was half backups to start the season.
Yeah.
My question is for Philly is, what exactly do you do? Like, what's the adjustment? Because the issue with posting...
You want to blow it up?
Well,
Blow it up. Trade
The problem with posting up Ben Simmons and using him in a playmaking role there is that Joel Embiid is not yet a great threat from three-point range. 1 of 6 tonight, only around 30% on the entire season. So
At
it's
least they'll
like
take them.
you want Embiid inside, and yet you also need Simmons there as well. It's just a really difficult contrast in styles, because I do think you need to probably just stomach it and just put Simmons in the post and see what happens. You need to do it more.
Well, this is kind of the question that I'm most interested in going forward.
Yeah.
Is this just a blip on the radar that they're going to figure out in this series, or is this something we have to worry more about them going forward? Because the big issue with adding another piece to this team is that their 2 guys right now both aren't good shooters.
Right. This is okay. So now that this game is officially done and dusted, we could kind of reset and talk about it now. They lost 108-103, and Justin is alluding possibly to the arrival of LeBron James, right? Like you were talking, like that was like a possible, like the Sixers were being tossed out there and are still being tossed out there as a possible landing spot for LeBron. Now, Justin's November.
Don't discount the
his
Knicks,
November
you guys.
prediction of the Knicks because of Fizdale is now being thrown out there. Was that the Post today? The New York Post
I
said?
believe so.
So there was a New York Post report today that Fizdale could be an attracting LeBron James. But before we get there, your point is basically that there's not enough ball to go around for a guy like Simmons, who's all on ball, to have somebody like LeBron. That it needs to be somebody like PG or even like maybe I say like Kawhi or something like that. He doesn't need the ball so much to create, right?
It's the Ben Simmons problem, and that's why a lot of people had him ranked behind Brandon Ingram in the draft. And that was a mistake. Simmons should be, going forward, ranked ahead of Ingram. And he's the better prospect, the better player. But when it comes to team building, you certainly do need to think about the pieces around him, and that's going to be the difficulty moving forward. Embiid needs to improve as a three-point shooter.
Yep.
The guys that they add need to be able to shoot off ball as well, unless Ben Simmons is able to become at least an average three-point shooter. Nobody needs him to be great.
I honestly, at this point, would take an average 10-foot shooter.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean,
Fair.
like when those guys sag off of him, I would take an average 10-foot shooter. Before we keep going, I just want to say it's #RingerNBA if you want to tell us we're overreacting to a game and a half of bad Ben Simmons, which I feel like we are. But it's just like this is a huge stage.
I don't know. Is it an overreaction, though? It was a conversation for the past 2 years.
It
Since
depends,
pre-draft, really.
overreacting on the series or overreacting on just him in general?
Overreacting on him in general. Like, are we taking too small of a sample size and now all of a sudden being like, the problem with Ben Simmons is?
It's interesting because entering the playoffs, we were like, part of the beauty is that he can do all this without a three-point shot. It almost makes him, different in a way. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing how much of a problem it is.
I think the problem is it confirms our greatest fear. And what everyone had, like the one knock on him since he was in college, before he was in college, was this. And it's really it's bearing fruit right now. I think the biggest issue I see is that pretty much the 3 other guys around Embiid and Simmons shot well from 3. You have Covington playing out of his mind, playing the best defense you can hope. He shot 4 for 7, much better, it's the point where he should have been playing the bench most of the time that game. Redick was 5 for 9. So you're getting those guys scoring off of kickouts, and yet you're still not overcoming the Celtics team.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, we've kind of talked so much about Donovan Mitchell over these last couple of weeks. Everything winds up affecting. Thank you, Louisville Cardinal Alumni Association. Right. Everything winds up affecting our perception of everything else. If Donovan Mitchell isn't essentially leading the Jazz into a tied series against the best regular season team we had this season, does this look as bad? Is it a matter of like what he's going up against?
Honestly, it doesn't for me. No,
Yeah.
I think, like Justin mentioned, like it's almost it's confirming some of the flaws with Ben Simmons, and it's not just the jumper though; it's the lack of a left hand around the rim, and a little bit this series in games 1 and 2. Some of the defense has been really weirdly inconsistent with him. He had an unbelievable season.
Yeah.
I had him on one of the all-defense teams, I believe, if I remember correctly. If not, he on the borderline of it. This year, Terry Rozier is blown by him in games 1 and 2.
Can't
a lot of
believe those
instances,
words are
which
coming out of your mouth.
it's difficult.
I have some.
You're like the dude from Breaking Bad back there.
I have some
Salamanca?
NBA player spice fresh off of Twitter right now.
Okay. Yes.
Goran Dragic, who I believe is on a team that is eliminated from the playoffs.
By the 76ers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just tweeted out, "This is it. Just Roy. That's it."
Retire.
Out of here.
Come on,
Goran.
man. I was going to ask something important about Boston.
You know what? I actually have a would you rather. I
Oh,
want
I
to make
love it.
sure I get this in. Okay. Would you rather be Markelle on the bench watching Tatum
This is a
go
bad
off?
beat. Oh my God.
Or would you rather be Ben Simmons watching TJ McConnell go off?
Oh, I'd much rather be Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons is
Ben,
not
for
getting
sure.
benched for TJ McConnell.
Yeah.
Having said that, I would rather be Markelle because this is not a new experience. You should be used to it by now.
I haven't been back to Boston since 1999, Kevin.
When you worked at the Middle East.
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Or that other podcast the other day. On the Ringer Podcast Network.
But I do think it's worth noting that is not Miami. That is like a much more intense playoff atmosphere
Yeah.
than maybe the Sixers saw when they went to Florida and had like a half full gym.
For sure. We talked about this on some podcast the other day. I forget which night it was, but it's like the Sixers haven't gone against a defense like this in about 2 months or so. I mean, this is the best defense in basketball that they're going against. And with Miami, it was
That's a really good point.
With Miami, it was like, who do they throw against them? Justice Winslow or Josh Richardson or James Johnson? 3 guys. With Boston, it's 4, 5 different guys that they can put on him, and then they can still match up against everybody else. And I think one of the problems tonight for Philly was more so, like even Embiid, Simmons not doing anything was an issue, but fatigue. They really exhausted a lot of energy early on in the game, it seemed like. Embiid getting blown by on that late possession when Horford drove right by him.
I can't tell. That might have been as much of like, I have a 5 fouls, and if we hit a 3 on the other end of the court, this is going to overtime, and maybe I'm not playing
It
in it.
made Al Horford look explosive.
Yeah, but that's actually just really good play design, though, isn't it? Like just setting those guys up where he's like turned that far away. I don't know, Paolo, did you have something?
Yeah. So we have a question from Peter Carlone. He asks, "Is Kyrie a Ewing theory candidate?"
Ooh.
And I want to ask that, but I also want to kind of connect that to Kevin's point, which he was saying, this is Boston has the best defense in the league. Is it as good because Kyrie's out?
Ooh. Yeah, you don't get the legendarily ferocious defense of Terry Rozier if Kyrie Irving is in.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You also don't get Kyrie Irving hitting game 7 jumpers to clinch the NBA Finals.
I don't think that was needed tonight.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue going forward is that now we have to deal with this Celtics team potentially in the East Finals again. And I'm so tired of like the narratives about like, oh, they're all together and like they just scrap and Brad Stevens the president. Get out of here, man.
I'm sorry, Justin. Would you rather watch the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals?
No, I like
Because
neither of them.
Let's talk about the only team more screwed than Philly tonight.
The
Toronto.
Pelicans?
Toronto. Let's talk about Toronto. The collapse, the extinction of the Toronto Raptors. Somewhere just out of my field of vision is Danny Chow. There's a tear slowly rolling down, an IPA flavored tear rolling out of his eye. And this was an absolute horror show for them. This is the worst possible thing that could have happened. You got punched in the mouth by LeBron the first game. That happens. You guys got to come back and defend your home court and split and go to Cleveland and exploit that terrible defense and hope that these guys have a collapse like they've had before. And they come out and they didn't just lose. Like, they were never in this.
Yeah, on behalf of everyone from the Ringer to all of Toronto, Get out of the mentions because we're just done. We just can't deal with all the Raptors hate because the entire season, the whole story from there has been, well, you guys don't take us seriously. You don't respect us. Like, why don't you watch our games? Even their broadcast would complain about like not getting fouls because they don't have this sort of star celebrity status as some of these other teams. But as we've seen, we were all right to assume that because they haven't showed anything differently. They're still showing the same issues as before.
I actually am pretty wrong because I was so in on the Raptors. I was like, this is different. All the things that eliminated them last time in the playoffs are different.
Yeah.
You know, relying on Lowry too much and not having enough ball movement. So I'm just completely wrong. But I still think it's the same problem as the beginning of the season before I saw that Casey's system had totally changed.
Yeah,
and that's, you need a wing.
I also think there was a lot of reason to respect the Raptors. I think they changed their system. DeRozan and a lot of the players on that team did change their games to adapt to it. It's just that's kind of the fear is that despite all that, despite everything going right for that team, OG Anunoby being one of the better rookies in the league, really, especially in the defensive end of the floor, it's still not enough. No. And that's the scary part.
So let me...
Young Paulo.
So I'm wondering to that point because we have a question from @BigChauncey64. I don't know if that's a fake account or real, but he's asking.
You said Russian bots are tweeting about the Raptors?
Yeah. He's asking two questions, but I'll ask the Toronto one first because he's asking if there's a missing piece, Kevin, you think maybe Toronto can add in the future and who that is, or does their ceiling remain the same as long as they keep the same backcourt?
My question with back to Big Chauncey is that like with what cap space? That was like when we did the blow it up article last year, like saying like they should bring it back, see how it goes, and maybe pull the plug then. I don't know what you're going to do. Like, I mean, nobody wants Jonas Valanciunas on his contract. Nobody wants washed-up Serge Ibaka. I mean, DeRozan and Lowry.
Is like challenge accepted.
I mean, DeRozan and Lowry, frankly, I don't think there's much value out there. That was one of the issues, like with the blow-it-up thing last year. Just nobody, I don't think, really wanted DeRozan. So it's like, what changes can you actually make on this team? That's what I'm afraid of.
I will tell you. Okay, so the problem with this Raptors, right? This is like this thing that Chris Bosh said to Bill Simmons a couple weeks ago in their fantastic podcast. When he's talking about the 2012 Thunder, and he was talking about how they were like Westbrook and Durant can get their 50. We were concentrated on Harden. You look at what happened tonight to the Raptors. It's a perfect example of that. DeRozan and Lowry got their about 50, and then there was just a flat line.
Yep.
There was not a third guy to step up there. So what do they need? They need that third player, let's say. Let's just say hypothetically. But what this season did was actually build value on all those below DeRozan and Lowry assets. Mm-hmm. Forget Valanciunas. I'm talking OG. We're talking Van Vliet. We're talking about
the strongest bench in the NBA sometimes.
That's a good package, man. Whether it's getting a first-round pick or whether it's getting a star who's got a wandering eye somewhere. I don't know. I think that you could do something like that.
I think it's too late to do that, though.
Fred Van Vliet is like the superstar version of TJ McConnell. Right? It's like, I mean, like, what are you really getting? And I mean, like,
Hashtag Ringer NBA. Is Fred Van Vliet the superstar version of TJ McConnell?
No, but I'm with Kevin, though. I think if you're going to blow anything up, it's the coaching staff. And, like, I would like to see some new blood go in there and see what they could do with the existing talent there. Because I think as a whole, they have a lot of pieces. And I would want to see someone not wait 4 or 5 years until you decide to shoot three-pointers. Like, what can someone other than Dwayne Casey do with those sort of guys?
Okay, so he decided to shoot three-pointers. So now what?
And
what do they do now? Like with this straight-up team, you bring Stotts in.
Well, I think the point our friend Danny Chow would make is that maybe you don't play CJ Miles at like the 5 and just like completely get shook in your lineups and just start throwing things out there that just don't make any sense.
It's funny that you say Stotts because one of my factor fictions is that you could change different pieces from Portland and the Raptors and nobody would notice.
Which is a huge indictment on the Eastern Conference.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That a team that came in third in the West and lost in the first round would have been like the far and away best team in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
Paolo, did you have a blow it up thing?
Yeah, we have another question from John Lucas Duffy. He's asking, I don't know if this is too anti-Raptors, but he said, should the Raptors be moved
Wait, you want to know if it's too anti-Raptors after Justin
I know, we're really leaning into it, but here we go. So should the Raptors be moved to Seattle if they get swept?
Come on, yeah. That's
this
is a dope fan base. That's a fun arena.
Seattle is a lovely place. Have you ever been?
Who's some lush
greenery
gonna do?
Huh?
Drake's gotta go hockey games? What's he gonna do?
Ibaka can go back to where he was drafted.
What's that?
Ibaka can go back to where he was drafted.
They could have Macklemore sitting game side, courtside.
This is raw, man. Kevin, what do you think here? Like in terms of, is there a tactical innovation that a new Raptors coach could add, or, and we can get into some LeBron worship now, are we just running up against the reality that no one can beat LeBron when he's turned on?
In terms of the tactical side of it, it's like the system was fine. It was a really good system this year. They played the way you wanted to play, and even this series, they've still retained that. They're moving the ball. End of game one, DeRozan didn't settle for an ISO. He attacked to the basket and kicked it out to Van Vliet for an open three. It just didn't go in.
Yeah.
Like, they're still playing the way the coaching staff wants them to play. It's DeRozan still isn't the three-point shooter that you would hope he is. And, like, some of the young guys on that roster still aren't really what you hope they are. So maybe for Toronto, it's like, wait it out. Maybe LeBron leaves and goes west.
Wait it out is the new blow it up.
But maybe. But here's the thing. Are you beating Boston with Hayward and Irving back? Are you beating Philly with Embiid and Simmons getting better and adding another max free agent potentially?
You feel like they're about to get the drawn back into the middle class.
That was the fear. That was the fear last year, and it's the fear now.
They're a wing away.
I think we also saw tonight a little bit of what the difference between a star and a superstar is. I mean,
sure.
It's not fair to judge anybody against LeBron, but you don't ever get the feeling like DeMar DeRozan's about to take the game over in the fourth quarter.
Which is crazy because he was like an outside MVP candidate at some point this season.
Right,
absolutely.
I think the issue is, if we're looking at the roster and not the coaching staff, is that, LeBron is amazing, and it's going to be tough to win a game against him regardless. But maybe when you go down by like 3 points in the third quarter, you don't wilt entirely and just make it seem like you just can't come back, like it's insurmountable. It seemed like they defeated themselves as much as LeBron defeated them.
To tie this to the discussion with Boston, like the amount of guys they can throw at Ben Simmons, right? With Toronto, they only have OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam.
To guard LeBron.
Yeah, Jonathan Chalks wrote about that earlier this week, and it's the type of thing where Siakam isn't good enough to stop LeBron, and OG is just a rookie.
I have a follow-up question for that, though. What about Kevin Love, though? Because
Minnesota
Kevin Love is back!
He's back!
Kevin wrote a piece about will we ever see Minnesota Kevin Love.
He did.
Clearly influenced Kevin Love.
Perfectly timed for our publishing cycle. Minnesota Kevin Love came out. Let's just get those stats really quick. He scored
31 points.
31 points and 11 boards. I feel the ice, the wind chill of Minnesota.
Highest plus minus on the team too. Plus
highest plus minus.
Yeah.
They need the second star. Like they still do. Yeah. Like, and this is a close to maximum potential Cavs team maybe tonight with that kind of performance from Love. It opens up everything else. If LeBron has a dependable second option out there, then Korver, JR, Clarkson, whoever else. They didn't really get it. Was the 2016 Cavs again tonight, but still, I was really impressed with Love.
It's funny because in game one, it was everybody else besides Kevin Love.
Yeah.
And then in game two, they were calling plays out of timeouts for Kevin Love. They were calling off-ball screens to get him going. He was moving around a lot. It did look more like Minnesota Kevin Love for sure.
Do you think Ty Lue reads the Ringer?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Haley, what did you see from Cleveland tonight? Did you see? Were you more impressed with Cleveland, or were you more depressed about Toronto?
Toronto.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because in the fourth quarter, when LeBron decided that he was just going to do the anti-Ben Simmons tonight and literally shoot every fadeaway from any spot on the floor that he decided he wanted to and made all of them, it was just like he was toying with them.
#RingerNBA if you guys have any questions, comments, Ben Simmons slander, Raptors eulogies, or LeBron poetry. We'll try to get to as much of it as possible. Towards the end of the show, though, Paolo is cycling in some stuff here and there. Do you have something for us?
Got another one. At Lee_Daniel721 asks, did LeBron grab the 6th Infinity Stone before the Toronto series?
I haven't seen any of those movies. I refuse.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No Avengers for me.
Such a contrary.
I think I saw the first one. It was not
So
that good.
I haven't seen any of those movies. I definitely saw a 3-hour movie. Okay.
They all blend together.
I bet you can
Maybe it was
guess what an
Ant-Man.
Infinity Stone means, though.
I bet
Especially
you
if there's
can't.
a certain amount.
Let's see.
I don't know
Justin,
those.
as somebody who's seen one Avengers movie, what is an Infinity Stone?
I assume it's a stone that goes on forever.
No.
Is it like a diamond?
There are multiple stones. This has got to be like
Is it like a
Horcrux.
Dragon Ball?
Don't give him help.
I haven't seen it either.
What's
I
an
just am
Infinity
really
Stone?
good at context clues.
What do you think an Infinity Stone is?
Like a Horcrux kind of thing.
I don't know what a Horcrux is.
Harry Potter.
I
Just exposing everybody's lack of pop
This is a
culture knowledge.
secret.
I haven't either.
Sorry you weren't
This has
16
gone off
in
the rails.
2000.
All right, this is getting weird. Let's go to NBA Fact or Fiction. Let's get off of what we do and don't know about Infinity Stones, which is apparently an infinite amount. I want to talk about NBA Fact or Fiction to open this up to a couple of the other series we have going on.
Sure.
Last night gave me life. The Jazz getting up under the hood of the Houston Rockets and saying, this doesn't work.
Is that Rodney Hood shade? Indirectly?
Is it?
I don't know.
Oh, under the hood.
Because
you
Utah.
saying.
Yeah.
NBA Fact or Fiction. Fact or Fiction.
We're all over the place.
The Rockets and the Raptors are regular season teams, so let's keep this to the Rockets. Was there anything that seemed like the Rockets were getting tripped up last night, and this is not a playoff offense, Kev?
Fiction, no. I mean, Utah's a tough team. They're a really, really good team, and they have a great coach and a lot of good players on that team. Utah's not a slouch team.
So was there was nothing the Rockets did wrong. It was just everything was like Utah's elite defense, Gobert defending the lane.
I think an immaculate game plan by Utah to come out and really contain what Houston does best.
So you're saying you think Chris Paul choked?
No. It's just like, look, Houston, they shot 10 of 37 from three.
Right.
That's like maybe if you want to say they're a quote unquote regular season team, sure, but they're a team that trusts the math. They could come out next game and shoot 22 of 37. It's about hitting their open shots.
It was cool to see their kind of, well, I don't want to say major pieces because the Jazz technically have no major pieces except for a rookie, but it was really cool to see the other guys come together and contribute to that. Like Exum on Harden was very, very fun. And then on the flip side, him on offense, Burks on offense, like kind of making up.
Alec Burks book, Brooke.
Yeah.
I was trying that out last night.
Yeah, he
I liked
said
it.
Burksbrook,
I
and
liked it.
it took me like 10 minutes to understand that you meant that was a Westbrook play on words
The long form feature will start with like a scene with Brooke Burke.
against Alec Burks.
He likes to take off from like half court and just be like, I'm going to the hoop.
Yeah.
So this is a must thing.
Okay, I want to remind you that I pitched something on him.
On Alec Burks?
Yes,
you
like
did.
3 months ago.
I think I shot it
and
down.
everyone shot me down.
Didn't Alec Burks have like 7 debilitating shoulder injuries in between the like when you pitched it and like when tonight?
Maybe like over his career in
Love this
general.
editorial meeting round.
Me airing my grievances.
I think the thing that I was most interested in is it feels like the Rockets are going to fluctuate a little bit more than you're comfortable with based on those three-point percentages, as we mentioned. If you're relying on Chris and Harden, who played pretty well in this one, and Capella did his thing, he caught the lobs and whatnot. The other ancillary parts, if they're not going to hit threes, I do wonder if you're going to see games like that, and when the threes aren't falling all together, whether or not they're going to be able to generate enough offense with Harden ISOs to do that. And against a team like the Warriors, I would definitely be worried about it.
Isn't that last year what Daryl Morey said? It's like the higher variance, increasing their risk profile is, yeah, you are going to have those rough nights shooting, but you're also going to have quarters where you score 50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you still have 2 of the best isolation players in basketball, one of the best ever in James Harden, to lean on when the game does slow down.
And you have Capella, and you can just kick it inside to him for the easiest basket.
What if Rudy's there though?
That's true, and he looked way better last night than in Game 1.
What did you say about Rudy Gobert and some of his more demonstrative fouls?
I don't know. What did I say?
Something about like Rudy sometimes like acts like he has my body.
Yes, he sometimes thinks he's like a 5'7", 130. We'll go 25 today. Pound like body.
Yeah.
He's so fragile sometimes on offense, and he just won't go up, and it's very annoying
Here's
to
like
watch.
I would say an 86% genuine concern troll I'm going to offer up on the Rockets.
Okay.
Is that when you play a game that's predicated on getting to the free throw line so much, you're obviously going to be deeply engaged with the refereeing. And last night,
Last night's
thought
refereeing was heavy-handed,
and I thought
though.
they started to get a little bit spooked by the refs. Like I thought, like there was a couple of times where it seemed like Harden was carrying a call with him for a couple of possessions, or he would get into it a little bit with Crowder over a foul, and whether or not he got the call, and then Crowder would take advantage of that moment to kind of get in his head a little bit, and you could see James Harden be like, "I'm the MVP. I can't like get into a shoving match with Jay Crowder or lose 3 possessions by getting heated about this." But that is really difficult. If your game is like, we're going to get to the line X number of times a game, that means the refs can get in your head a little bit.
Wait, can you see how much Chris loves this shit right now? This is his Super Bowl. This is how he makes up for the Sixers playing so poorly in the past 2 games. No, continue.
Yeah, it's definitely partially that. Like, that's always been the conversation with Chris Paul, too.
Yeah.
You know, mental toughness and focus. And I think another factor, perhaps, is like with James Harden, how much could be fatigue, right, on those step-back jumpers that he's relied on so much this season.
Heavy ISO.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a heavy workload over the course of the season where maybe you're starting to develop tired legs at this point of the season.
Okay, let's do another NBA fact or fiction, and I'd like to open this up as we are in a democracy to the Bitcoin boys back here as well. Show of hands, and we'll tell you what the vote is for the podcast. Are we headed for Cavs Dubs 4? Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Just me and Justin?
No.
Sure.
You're right. You're right.
Who do you have over Cavs and Warriors?
Over Cavs Warriors?
Yeah.
So don't get too excited, but I honestly think that Boston winning tonight was just like
Fool's gold?
no.
Look
I
at his eyes.
I still think that the Sixers have a chance out of that, and I think that the Cavs are just so floppy.
They're the best.
They're so floppy. Like, okay, Kevin Love was good tonight,
Yeah.
right? Kyle Korver was good 2 games ago. It's just like what happens when nobody shows up except
You guys
for
said
LeBron?
to say this, you're the best, though. It's 2-0 is a deep hole in the ground. Like, teams just don't come back from that usually.
Maybe they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, maybe the Celtics have peaked too early.
Maybe.
That's what I think might have happened.
No, I mean, I think
Marcus Smart is not going to hit 4 threes in the rest of the series combined.
the Sixers are the most talented team. I think we could all agree in the East. It's just with the experience factor in there, like you can't discount what LeBron and Love and just a bunch of other guys can do.
And he's rolling it back with the same team.
You
that
think-
he's
you think
comfortable
Cavs
with. We've
Warriors
seen
again?
that.
I had Rockets Cavs before the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy to stick with that, but I do think Golden State should be the favorite.
After seeing Steph back especially.
Yeah, after seeing Steph back and looking like himself in Game 1 immediately, and then with Houston, it's like there's something a little off for sure. I mean, I still think they're a tremendous team, but something's a little off.
I do
right
think
now.
it plays a lot into like the mentality thing, which is kind of interesting because that's been on these guys' backs, on Harden's and Chris Paul's backs, like for their entire careers.
Absolutely.
But it really seems like they get spooked, like you were saying, by the foul calls. But also, I think that like Harden doesn't want to have another like 0-for-7 start like he did against the Wolves.
Also,
you know, that kind of thing
relying
can
on
really
three-pointers
freak him
is
out.
a little bit of playing roulette,
It is,
no
and
matter
that's-
how good you are.
That's their difference between blowing someone out and staying in the game with them.
Yes.
Is if they can make their 3-pointers. And Eric Gordon had a good game, but he had a terrible game in Game 1, and he's struggled all season. And, you know.
All right, let's do then, to wrap up this part, let's do a little playoff prescriptions. So we've diagnosed the problems. Does anybody have any solutions for any of these teams that are down in their series? And I'll include the Rockets in that too, just because they obviously didn't play the way they wanted to. But is there anything the Pelicans, Sixers, or Raptors can do to get back in this? Let's start with the Pelicans with you.
Oh, the Pelicans?
No.
I don't think so. I think
They're actually playing really well, and they're just losing.
Yeah, I mean, they were in that game last
Yeah.
night, and it seemed like at the same time the Warriors could just step on the gas pedal and just pull away by 15. I think what we forget about, and then shouts to Danny Chow behind me for writing this in his piece tomorrow, so spoiler alert. But like playoff Draymond Green is just on another level. Like we forget that during the season maybe they coasted a little bit. When he's on, this team is a completely different team. And what they were doing in that last game, it seemed like they were playing off of Rondo a little bit and giving him the Tony Allen treatment. Whereas on the other side, they tried that a little bit in Game 1 against Draymond Green.
And he made him pay.
And Green made that first 3, and I was like, this is over. This is 4 games.
Do you know how strange it is to say that in the playoffs, Draymond Green is the most fun player on that team?
Yeah.
On a team with Kevin Durant, who's like the greatest scorer in the league.
Steph Curry,
who could hit a shot blindfolded. Klay Thompson, who could do that as well.
while drinking chocolate milk.
While drinking chocolate milk and enjoying, you know, some other extracurricular activities. Draymond Green is still the most fun one on both ends.
Not to interrupt here, but personally, I don't agree with that. Like, I find him like more exhausting than enjoyable.
Is that bellworthy, or what do we do for
Okay, I'm
that?
sorry. There you go. Okay, no, I don't know. I find Steph more fun to watch. I think Draymond, I get his appeal, but it's just like, it's too much.
Steph coming
It is
back,
intense.
it was like almost a reminder of like, oh my God, I miss watching this guy so
Yeah.
much. It's fantastic. When he hit that first pull-up 3, whew,
Do you have any playoff prescription for the Raptors? Is there anything that they can do to get back into this Cleveland thing, or hope that Cleveland does a Cleveland on themselves?
I mean, with Toronto, it's like we talked about earlier. They're still moving the ball. They're still doing the things that they need to do. Maybe it's fix your defense, because ever since mid-March or so, after they had that win streak, they've been pretty average. So it's been 6 weeks or so ever since they've been a great top 5 defense. They need to get their defense fixed. Whatever it might be, whether it's intensity, defensive rotations, or getting the right lineups on the floor, something needs to get fixed on the defensive end of the floor. It's not offense, I don't think.
Don't play CJ Miles at center.
Okay. I don't want to talk about the Sixers anymore. Let's do the mailbag.
Sure.
Let's do the mailbag, because we got a ton of questions from listeners. Oh, wait, did you have... What do you want to...
Dr. Haley.
Dr. Haley.
You got to get the solution for the Sixers. Brett Brown needs to
Do you
hear
have a
it.
solution for the Sixers?
I don't for the Sixers. Actually, when you said prescriptions, I thought you meant like literally.
I'm just going to give out Adderall? What are we doing?
Pelicans, I would give the Warriors melatonin.
Okay.
Oh.
Because they can go to sleep, because this is over.
You see what I did there?
She's going to drug
See what I did?
an NBA
have-
team is what Haley is suggesting.
If this doesn't work out, Rite Aid is right there for you. That's perfect. Let's do some mailbag questions. Andy Driscoll wants to know, if JJ Redick is off the board, who on the Ringer staff is getting picked for a first game of pickup?
Mark Titus, he played volleyball.
Shout out to Titus.
Yeah.
I want to. Can I
How
throw?
about in this room?
Can I extend it to on the other side of that wall? Because I want to. I've
yes.
not seen this, but Sean Yu,
I don't think I'm serious.
I'm
the
screaming.
reincarnation of Patrick Beverly, who is not dead.
Wow.
But Sean Yu apparently is nothing but trash talk and ankle diving. So
Wow.
that's what I'm going to go. I'm going to throw a vote in there. Do you have when you see people, you're like, that guy, but he is game.
I've heard Colin Orcutt. It's pretty good.
Yeah, but Colin
Isn't he hurt?
Is like completely devastated by a shark bite right now.
Is he
Is it a
hurt?
shark bite? I don't even know what happened to
Gallagher's
Colin.
Are we factoring in health, current condition
Yes,
right
of
now?
course we are.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
I'll still take
I think
Colin.
Pat in this room is the only one that actually plays right now, so just to Pat.
Okay. Hashtag Ringer NBA if you have questions. Russell Gibson asks, are the Knicks slowly getting their act together? Nice pieces on the court. It's the same pieces that were on there last year. Front office doing a job without noise, I guess, and now Fizdale. Do you want to do a quick why LeBron is going to the Knicks and how it happens bit?
Well, it comes down to me just like speaking it into an existence.
So, like,
it worked
run
for
to
the Houston and Chris Paul
run to
with
the
me,
board
yeah.
like
Right.
Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, it's really improbable considering that the Knicks books are just completely gross. But, like, let's say Enes Kanter opts out, or if Enes Kanter opts in and LeBron opts in, you could maybe work out a trade if he, like, forces his way to that. I mean, I will say this. LeBron, every time he's gone to MSG, has always talked about how much he loves that stage.
Sure.
And he loves the city,
plays
he loves the
great there,
energy,
too, yeah.
and he's a historian of the game, and so I think he would like playing there. Having said that, as you mentioned, the roster is kind of trash.
Right.
So I don't think it makes actual sense, but I think Fizdale's is a good hire. I think he's a good hire for Kristaps specifically, because he's the type of guy who can take advantage of him in his offense.
We actually, me and Justin and Danny were talking earlier about how he could turn Kristaps into somewhat what Anthony Davis has been after DeMarcus Cousins went down, and like push him to the 5
yeah.
and see some interesting stuff there, because Fizdale played such a huge part in Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh's development.
Chris
yeah.
Bosh, yeah, in Miami.
Yeah, there was
And Team
nothing else
Vantage stretch
contributed to
for it.
Chris Bosh's development, though. And did you see that Fizz got on a plane and flew to Latvia, like, immediately after he got this job?
Really?
No, that's amazing.
Isn't
be
it
an
amazing
expensive
if, like,
flight.
Kristaps is just at Hyde, and he gets to Latvia, and he's like, I'm here! It's like Kristaps is like, I'm a nice guy.
Just FaceTime him instead.
Paolo, do you want to take one of these questions and ask it to the group?
Sure. Let's go with this one from @Alan Montesillo. Help a despondent Spurs fan. What needs to happen for a Kawhi for Doncic deal?
Where's Doncic going first?
I know. How
He's
does
going to Phoenix, didn't you know that?
Right. They have our guy Igor. The Igor Whisperer.
Would you do Kawhi? Would you think if you were the Spurs, you would do Kawhi for like a top 3
You
pick?
need more than that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Also, yeah, but
Wolf's got Andrew Wiggins,
he's
Anthony
also-
Bennett, who didn't suck yet, and another pick
Well,
for Kevin Love.
we weren't sure he definitely sucked
Yeah.
yet,
Well,
but he
he
did
did
suck.
We're
But
exactly sure.
It was just 1 year, though. He's still a #1 pick, only 1 year removed.
Right.
So they got 2 1s and a future pick for Kevin Love.
Right.
For Kawhi, like I've been told, like that the Spurs are going to need like a home run grand slam offer in order to do a deal.
He's actually holding out on them. You know, Kawhi is
Yeah.
pulling what we all were like, Kyrie really could have done this if it came down to it. He could just say, I'm not playing, which
Right.
is seriously what it seems like Kawhi's doing right now.
When a star gets traded, when we look back on it, the deals aren't as good as we think. And so if Kawhi picks where he wants to go, if he's going to say, I'm not going to stay here, I'm not going to opt into my final year or sign an extension or whatever, I think then the offers start to get a little bit more complicated. Really, like, when was the last good star trade that we've had?
You don't get good star trades because you can never get equal value for what you're offering out.
If you're San Antonio and the offers are underwhelming in June during the draft, or if they're underwhelming in July during free agency, why settle? Like, you can pull this out into August and September if you really need to. I know that's risking it too, but you're also potentially getting a team desperate, or you're driving up offers for teams that miss out on free agency. I think there could be an advantage to drawing it out too if you're San Antonio.
On one side, I see your point. I am scared that if this injury thing continues and if there is more legitimacy to that than to this being like a ploy,
Value goes down.
Yeah, then your value goes down. At the same time, what he was saying is absolutely correct. What do the Spurs have? LaMarcus Aldridge is what, 31?
Something like
DeJounte
that.
Murray? Like, Manu was supposed to retire last year. Tony Parker's not coming off the bench. I'm not really sure what they have unless they can get something really substantial for Kawhi.
They're facing their toughest offseason in 20 years.
Yeah, because usually they build up. That's
Right.
the whole thing about them.
Paolo, did you have any other questions for us?
Yeah, I like this one. And Kevin mentioned Wiggins, but Dylan Anderson from Twitter had said, Wolves fan here, just a thought. Assuming Cavs win and Toronto needs a change, how about a Wiggins-DeRozan swap
That would be a highway robbery.
for the Wolves?
Yeah.
If they dumped Wiggins on the Raptors,
How about we change this? What could they do to make that work?
Which side?
The Raptors. What else could the Raptors
like
ask
what
for?
would they have to sell their fan base? I mean, maybe you guys tell us if you're from
What
Toronto.
else would the Wolves have to
Wiggins
give
is
up?
from Toronto.
Maple Jordan.
Who is it?
Wiggins
Well,
is
it's not,
from
but it's
Toronto.
not
No,
like
I'm
a
saying,
Wiggins
like,
thing.
people from Toronto can tell me, do they have such affection for Wiggins that it would be like, he's coming home, get rid of DeMar?
Yeah.
Here's a
there's
question,
no-
though. Do you think they would rather, after everything they've gone through with this team, rather root for like a young, scrappy team than one who's going to, end up getting eliminated by LeBron because of the expectations and all that?
They would get eliminated
you
a
saying
whole lot
LeBron?
earlier.
No.
if
I'm
they
just
had
saying.
by the
Wiggins.
Pacers.
I will say this:
I'm just
Wiggins
saying.
always
March.
plays
It's more
better
fun.
in Toronto because he's like, I'm home. He plays better in Cleveland because he's like, you guys traded me and embarrassed me on live television.
Yeah, but then he's going to go out with Drake, and it's going to be a whole
He's
thing.
also only
I don't
23
think Wiggins
years
goes
old.
out.
You think that there's second and third chapters to what we're seeing from Wiggins?
I mean, look, like, I think we did an article on this season where it's like Wiggins is not at all meeting expectations, but he's still shown flashes.
How young is he?
23 years old. He's still shown
Well,
flashes.
he
young.
said this a lot. I think he definitely needs a change because how Thibodeau's coaching him doesn't work.
Right.
Maybe, we talked a lot about maybe this would work better if he was in some like a clear system offense, which is like, okay, we were just talking about San Antonio, something like that, Boston, the Jazz. I would like to see him in that before I give up on him, but right now it's just very frustrating to watch him play basketball.
Right.
Kev, Joe Spinoza on Twitter, there's two questions. There's one from Joe and there's one from Ewick7. I think what is it? Ewick R7. And they're both basically, to summarize, like, Al Horford is amazing and Brad Stevens is amazing. Talk about that. For somebody who's just like, all I hear is how good Brad Stevens is, or all I hear is what mysterious genius Al Horford is there any succinct way to explain what they do that is so special?
Yeah, I think with Al Horford especially, he does all the little things. I mean, we're amazed by great shot blockers on the defensive end of the floor, but he's really like a master of angles, and he communicates, and he's a leader by example with hustle and positioning, and he can space the floor on offense, which helps everybody else out there. It creates space for Tatum and Brown and Rozier to drive. It did for Isaiah Thomas last year. It did for Kyrie Irving earlier this year. And then Brad Stevens, we saw it at Butler. We saw it with the younger Celtics teams. He has a way of putting guys into positions to succeed.
I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to execution and game planning.
Yeah.
And it seems like those two together have they're almost kindred spirits in that way.
It is really bizarre to hype someone up because they very clearly get the right position on defense.
Right.
And they cut a guy off because we're never going to champion that and celebrate it. It just kind of makes you a super boring guy.
Yeah, it's like
Unless you're playing against Embiid, with 2 minutes to go.
The guy.
In game two.
Did you look like Carl Lewis?
It's like during the season, like a lot of Sixers fans understandably made fun of like Al Horford's stat line, like 13, 7, and 5.
Charles
as an
Barkley made
all-star.
fun of it.
Yeah.
And it's silly, but
Just made fun of it.
having that guy who is an A-plus screener, an A-plus defender,
Yeah.
A-plus communicator, an A-plus
He can go to the screening Hall of Fame. He can go to the screening All-Star game. then.
He is, aside from maybe like Draymond, one of the best passing big men in basketball. He does a lot for that team that doesn't show up in the box score.
Nhoots4 asks, after game 2, would you rather be going home down 0-2 or heading on the road after a split like the Rockets? I'd rather be going on the home after a split.
I'd rather win one more game.
But let me ask this. Which home team going into these second set of games should feel the best about their chances? So basically, like the Sixers are about to host the Celtics in Philly, and the Jazz are about to host the Rockets in Utah, and New Orleans is about to host the Warriors. Who there, out of those teams, do you feel like has the best shot?
Sixers have the most talent, as we said. The home crowd has been behind them. Meek Mill is there now, so maybe they'll have him more.
He was here tonight.
He's there tonight?
Yeah, I know, but this is
blotted
his
out
setting.
by Gucci Mane's resplendent Jaylen Brown jersey.
Yeah.
Right. But, I mean, them and then obviously, I was going to say the Raptors, but no.
I think that Utah gym is pretty hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It's a good
Jazz are
atmosphere.
excited.
And they're willing to throw their phones in players' faces, so
That's
maybe
right.
that's an advantage.
That's right. They look at flopping them much the same way I do. I share a lot with Utah citizens. Let's wrap it up there. For Haley O'Shaughnessy, for Kevin O'Connor, for Justin Verrier, for everybody in the back, Bitcoin boys, blog boys everywhere, thank you for joining us on the Ringer NBA Show group chat. We will be back next week.
Who did the paleo nuts?
Paleo? Oh, I did not do that. But that is kind of